following an embarrassing appearance at the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa, where the Prime Minister was ignored when leaders included a clause in the final communique which called for dialogue on the question of reparatory justice. Now, Labour MPs Clive Lewis and Diane Abbott have launched a scathing attack on Sir Keir Starmer for adopting a colonial mindset on reparations after he dismissed calls.
What's up, YouTube? Today we are covering how feminists are now openly admitting that they idolize Adolf Hitler. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're not. So, let's get into it.
Well, I'm joined now by the anti-racism activist Iman Ayton. Well, Iman, thanks so much for coming in. You've had a run to get here, which is noble of you.
And I'm very grateful that you waited for me. I'm sure you were on time, as usual. You're very meticulous in that respect, but thank you for waiting for me.
Thank you for being here. It seems to me that the Labour Party is in a terrible muddle about this, because Keir Starmer clearly doesn't want to do it, because the British voter does not want to spend billions of pounds on reparations, and yet the left of the Labour Party is very keen to do it. So how does he square this circle?
Many reasons, Jacob. I think it's really important to just realise that this figure, so we've seen many different figures from 200 billion to...
17 trillion, I think, is the highest I've seen.
18.8, if you don't mind me correcting you, sir.
No, of course not.
18.8, that was from the Brattle Group report. So we have many different figures being thrown around as of late. And I really want people to realise that this figure, whether it be 200 million or billion to 18.8 billion. This is to do with slavery and colonialism. So
All right. Notice how she doesn't really give a real answer to justify her need for reparations. Like, her answers are very vague, very broad. She says it has something to do with slavery and colonialism. Okay, let's be honest here. There is not a single human being alive today who has had anything to do with that. There hasn't been. Also, she keeps saying she wants reparations. Okay? Well, answer me this. What's the end date for these reparations? Like, what's the actual end date? What is the overall goal, the logical and achievable goal she wants to have with these reparations? And what's the end date for them? Like, when will there not be a need for reparations? Yeah. Are we just talking about holding people, a group of people, accountable for something that they didn't do, but rather that their ancestors did indefinitely? Tell us, everybody, what chapter of world history does that remind us all of? I'll give you an answer. It starts with the letter H. And we'll soon see her fully admit she embraces this.
That this country, in terms of colonialism, they transported 3.3 Africans across the Atlantic. And then, of course, they transitioned, I said this on Jeremy Vine's show, they transitioned from the slavery in terms of the physical and psychological violence to the political, economical and cultural domination of people, which is colonialism. And they, the British, colonised 22 countries in Africa over 173 years. They also colonised 15 or over 15 countries in the Caribbean. So when we think about these figures that have been thrown about as of late, it's easy to square it. It's quite understandable when you amalgamate all of the information from slavery to colonialism.
But shouldn't they actually be paying us? Because some of these Caribbean countries are very prosperous. They've done extremely well. And they did well because the British gave them the rule of law and democracy and capitalism. And this has been incredibly successful. The British Empire was an amazing force for good, for civilization and for raising people's standards of living. So why should we have to pay for doing that? Surely we should be paid.
I think that's a very bold question to ask a strong black woman on your channel, Jacob. And I'll actually pose a question to you. Would you say that about Jews? So I'll just give the context. First and foremost, one could easily argue that the Jewish community, the Israeli Jews, benefited from the Holocaust. And
but I don't think you could.
Allow me to finish. Allow me to finish. Let me bring it home, Jacob. Let me bring it home. They benefited from Holocaust and Hitler due to the fact that they were given the state of Israel Israel, their life expectancy improved, and last but not least, their GDP improved. Israel's GDP improved as a result of Germany giving reparations in 1952. So would you say on national TV about the Jews that they should be happy and should be thanking Hitler and the Holocaust, Amy and Dave?
It sounds like Madam, well, let's backtrack. She's literally defending Adolf Hitler now and the horrible deeds that he committed. Let's be honest here, everybody. The history of Adolf Hitler is nothing to admire about. Thousands of people died. It was actually a genocide Adolf Hitler was promoting, and that Adolf Hitler attempted to carry out. There's nothing beneficial. No one profited off of Adolf Hitler and his Nazis. No one did. But take a look at this. We have a feminist who is actively, fully admitting on national news that the feminist movement actually does fully support Adolf Hitler. She does. She's actually doing that by actually defending Adolf Hitler's actions. She's doing it. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. They're not. Also, I'm kind of wondering if this woman even knows what colonialism is. Because let's face it, the United States of America wouldn't exist if Britain didn't try to colonize it. It wouldn't exist. Yeah. And yet, we're not being asked from Britain to pay reparations. No, we're not. We did away with that when the whole argument over taxation without representation. But this is literally what this woman's trying to promote. She wants to abolish taxation without representation and set reparations on these particular group of people, not because of anything that they did, but rather because of the mistakes their ancestors made. That, by the way, she has nothing to do with either. She has not been affected by that at all, whatsoever. But yes, she wants to hold these people accountable for it now. Also, let's face it, let's be honest here, psychological damage was not really a thing back then because I don't think the field of psychology existed back then. It really did not. Not during the colonial times. And yet this woman doesn't seem to understand that at all. She really doesn't.
What they have gone through because they have benefited in terms of money. I would argue that Amy and David, Jacob wouldn't say this about Jews, but he's saying it about black people.
I'm not.
So let me know what you're saying here, Jacob.
I'm saying it about the whole history of the British colonies, which was stunningly successful. What you've said about the Holocaust is just nonsense.
Amy's ignored that, hasn't he?
I'm answering it.
Point,
because the British, in the Balfour Declaration, said there should be a homeland for the Jewish people before the Holocaust. That wasn't a consequence of the Holocaust. It was British policy beforehand.
Okay,
so what you're saying is simply historically wrong.
No. If you're going to say that I'm historically wrong, no problem.
Let's go back to slavery and the topic under discussion. Let's go back to what we're talking about.
You want me to ignore your point. I want to address the point that you just made. And it wasn't just to do with the Balfour Declaration. Let me just be clear. Their life expectancy, Jewish people's life expectancy
was ruined because we're all killed.
It improved due to the fact they were given the state of Israel.
I'm afraid your argument is unbelievably...
And Israel was given reparations in 1952 and their country improved and thrived as a result. So even if you want to ignore the fact that they were given the state of Israel, we have to acknowledge the fact that Jewish people's life improved and the country improved as a result in terms of reparations.
That Israel was the Palestine mandate and was run by the British. So if it's a success of Britain, not anything to do with the horrors of Germany. But it's the British.
She keeps saying he's not listening. Madam, you're the one not letting him speak. That's really what it is. You're the one who refuses to let the guy speak by actually yelling and shouting over him. Now let me see. What particular chapter of history does that remind you of? Where, hey, it says these people were not permitting these people to speak. I'll give you all a hint. It starts with the letter H, which this woman has fully admitted she's a full-fledged supporter of. She openly admitted that on national television.
Slavery. Okay. No country in the world had ever tried to stop slavery before the British did it.
May I interject?
In the beginning of the 19th century. And
that's actually inaccurate. May I interject?
Who tried to stop it?
Okay, so first and foremost, let's just deal with the fact I appreciate that, and you know what, I don't want to be combative. It's a natural state of mind when dealing with these types of
arguments.
It's a natural state of mind. And I want to be honest with you. I respect you, and I think that you are highly intelligent and articulate, and I want to give you what is due in terms of a conversation. So let me just retort by saying, you asked me the question, no one else stopped slavery before the British. That was your question.
Yes.
I want to be honest in saying, if we really want to be pedantic, which is my favourite way of life. Denmark. So wait, allow me to finish, sir. Right. Allow me to finish. I know we have limited time, but you asked me a question.
But Denmark didn't have the Royal Navy. So Denmark may have wanted to do it, but it was the Royal Navy. It was our power and our wealth that did it.
The Royal Navy, which is the West African Squadron. I know. Can I just finish my point, if you wouldn't mind? I'll just say this very briefly. The Denmark, in terms of, I think it was Christian VII of Denmark, actually opposed slavery and announced that it would end in regards to the Danish West Indies. So in other words, Denmark would stop slavery in the West Indies, and they stopped that. Allow me to finish.
But we can go even earlier.
And they finished that in 1792. So Denmark, that was 45 years before the Brits. Right. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then Portugal. I'm sorry, I have to look at Amy, because she knows what I want.
Finish, unfortunately.
Amy, I'm going to talk, Jacob.
We're going to have to finish, but you're ignoring the Emperor Charles V in the 16th century. We're going to have to go.
So we have Portugal, we have Denmark that finished or tried to abolish the slave trade before Britain. That is a fact. Denmark and Portugal.
We've got to go to Patrick, but the British abolished it. We had the Royal Navy.
Okay, I'll write down there. Okay, first of all, madam, combativeness is not a natural state of mind. Combativeness is a reaction when somebody points out, hey, your case doesn't really, or should I say, combative is a reaction when you're starting to realize, hey, the case you have does not have a leg to stand on. It really does not. Also, here's a question for you, madam, about the whole Denmark being the first ones to abolish slavery. You made perfectly clear Denmark did not have the Royal Navy. So, how could Denmark succeed in abolishing slavery without the element of force at their disposal? How? Like how? Like you keep saying that Denmark was the first one to work on abolishing slavery, but yeah, they may say they want to do it, but how do you expect them to do that if they didn't have the element of force, which was the Royal Navy? How? By all means, why don't you tell us how they did that, madam? By all means, just how. But regardless, this is another piece of evidence of how the feminist movement is openly showing support for Adolf Hitler. Because just like Adolf Hitler, the feminist movement is actively trying to rewrite history in order to get what they want. Yeah. Rewriting history, despite what several cartoons like to say, I find to be a horrific and appalling practice, which I don't know about you guys, but I would rather get myself away from overseas than have anything to do with it. That's how I end up finding Carlene. It really is. All right.